Good evening and welcome to the MG EVs Community Podcast streaming live today, Monday the 3rd of October 2022. Sorry, we're a moment or two late, and I see from the chat that some folk are likening it to the deliveries of MGs, but there was a wee technical problem and we've got that sorted out. Well done, Stuart. We discuss all MG electric vehicles, hope to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum, and I drive a ZS EV new long range. So sorry, Tom and Jeff, I can see you're asking when you're going to get yours. I will try and introduce quite quickly into the running order just how delighted I am with the car. Joining us tonight in Wigan is Les Burrows.
Hi everybody, I'm Les Burrows, same name on the forum.
And still driving
the MG5 at the moment.
Perfect. Good to see you, Les. From Essex, we've got Barry.
Good evening, Barry H on the forum, and behind me you see the car I have awaiting an order on.
But still driving the ZS.
I'm on the ZS at the moment, yeah.
Perfect. And welcome on board a couple of new participants, Keith and Vera Murray from Aberdeenshire. Hello, you two.
Hello. So I'm Keith Hitayek on the forum. Sorry for the strange. It's Keith backwards.
I'm Vera Murray.
And I drive an MG5.
And I drive a new MG4.
Brilliant. So
picked up on Friday.
So we'll be picking your brains quite a lot today, Keith and Vera, so that's good.
Not much there.
Good luck in that one.
Talking about picking people's brains from the Chorley Group, the Innovation Development Manager, Miles Roberts. Welcome again, Miles.
Hi everyone, Miles Roberts, CG on the forum, currently driving an MG5 long range.
Great. So just before we kick off, if we can just go back to Keith and Vera, just to ask a wee bit, what was your first EV and how are you getting on with EV driving? Because most of the folk listening at the podcast will have heard me going on about how difficult sometimes it is to get a charge in rural Scotland. But how are you getting on with your electric vehicles?
Right. Our first EV actually was the MG5. We probably got into it much the same way as others. It was sadly not too environmental. It was more running costs, things I was thinking about at the time. Back in early
February 2001, 2021.
Yeah, 2021 when we got the car. And just before that, at the time of order, was the sort of perfect storm of the MG. Were doing quite a good promotion on the purchase price. The grant was in full swing for plug-in vehicles. Being in Scotland, we could get the grant for the charge point as well. So we had, at the time, we're running a Skoda Kodiaq, big diesel. We did have a caravan. That was part of the reason I had that. So we thought, well, just to commute back and forth to work, this is a bit gutsy. So that was what started us. So at that time the local dealer was Galanders and Peterhead. So we got in touch with them and we test drove the 5, and well, it's the 5 standard range at that time. That's all there was. Yeah. And the ZS Mark 1, I guess they call it. So we test drove both of those on probably the windiest, rainiest, horrendous day I could.
Oh, yeah.
It was terrible. So it was enough to just give us a feel for it, and yeah, really enjoyed it. The 5 suited us better, so that was the one we went for. Vera still had at that time petrol Jimny.
A Suzuki Jimny.
So we had that as a reserve, but we never really had an issue with range on the EV5. It's around 200 miles. We seem to have managed fairly consistently. which for most of the journeys we've done,
Good.
perfect.
Keep your powder dry in MG4 because we'll be picking your brains about that any minute now. So, but you're very welcome on board. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And everybody, if you're watching live, thank you for joining us, and please click the like button and join in the discussion and in the chat window. And I've seen one or two things coming through already, one or two comments about the late deliveries and things like that. But I'm sure Miles will possibly have something up his sleeve about that. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe and get a notification when we go live the next time. In tonight's podcast, we're mainly discussing the new MG4 with experiences, as you've heard, from people who've actually driven it, and indeed, in some instances, folk who've bought it. If we've got time, we'll speak a bit about the energy prices and what effect that's having on us. And we hope to do just a wee bit of a roundup of other news. We've had a wee bit of a summer break, and now we're back. So there's been one or two things happening. So as I said, my news is that it finally arrived. I've got my new long-range ZS. Miles, it's blue. I blew the budget in this one and moved off the white. Absolutely love it. Everything. I love the ordinary ZS. But everything about the long range is just better. Being able to just jump the car in Edinburgh and not even think, I'm going back to Inverness and I'll need to think about where I'm charging up. I got home this weekend, back from Edinburgh. I charged to 90%, and when I got home, I had some like 92 miles left, which was just fantastic, really good. And as I say, a total game changer for me. I don't know what's the feedback coming from the forecourts. Are folk generally liking them, Miles?
Yeah, no, I mean, with all electric cars, there's strong demand at the moment, but MG has been in that sort of fairly unique position of having a cost-effective product available at the right sort of size and range that few others can match, really. You know, the ZS EV with its 73 kilowatt hour battery giving 280-ish miles range means that really for a lot of people it's ticking out all the boxes, and it's the right size as well, you know. So the demand's been massive for the ZS EV, as indeed obviously it has been for the MG4 as well. The ZS EV and the MG5, you know, every MG5 we've got in, we've sold, you know, straight away. We're not carrying stock of things like we were, you know, a year or two ago. We had like, you know, 20 ZS EVs in stock ready to do an offer with and, you know, get them out the door. We're not got any stock, you know, the cars are all on order and they're quite long lead times. One of the things I was just going to mention actually in terms of lead times, just to give you guys some the current average new order lead time by model, the ZS EV is currently at 42 weeks. So that's pretty much sort of like 9-10 months. So if you're wanting a ZS EV, sort of like next June, July is probably when you're likely to see it if you ordered it today. With the MG5, they've stopped taking orders for the pre-facelift model, and they have opened orders for the new MG5 facelift long-range version, and that's currently from today a 16-week lead time, so about sort of 4 months. So you're looking at early next year. The HS FEV, if anyone's interested in that, is around 8 to 12 weeks. So that's relatively good news. That's sort of, you know, hopefully Christmas time for some people. The MG4 EV standard range, you're looking at around 8 weeks, and the MG4 EV long range, which is either the Trophy or the SE, around 16 weeks.
Right.
So obviously, if you're in the market for a long range MG4, it is going to be early next year before we see them, based on a new order time. there are around 3,000 MG4s available before Christmas, of which 1,000 of them have already been delivered to dealers and have been handed out to customers, or will be in the next week or so. So we're expecting another sort of 2,000 before Christmas, but they're all pretty much allocated already. There won't be very many free, apart from the standard range SEs. There won't be very many available apart from that. But I say, it's, to be fair, even like, if we're talking about cars being ready in, Q1 of next year, in the case of the new MG5 long range and the new MG4 long range, that's still beating a lot of our competitors. So we've got Nissan, Kia, Hyundai, Vauxhall and Citroen dealerships in our group as well. And all of those for EV products are minimum 6 months, and most of them are 12 to 18. So realistically, if you're waiting 3 or 4 months for an MG, you're still going to get it a bit quicker. So yeah, so overall MG seems to be doing quite well for getting stock out there, but it is demand is still very high, so that's causing issues in terms of fulfilling orders quickly.
Miles, I see Paul Moyes asking why are people who ordered their cars last year still not getting them when people who are ordering the cars this year seem to be. But I think you've covered this in the past, that it might be down to the spec, is it? Or?
Yeah, so I presume Paul's talking about the ZSEV long range. So with the ZSEV, what we tend to find is that MG basically don't build to order, they build in batches. So if they build according over the last year, they've had issues obviously with supply of certain components, and that meant that, for example, the Trophy Connect, they couldn't certify all those orders straight away. They've had to change the spec on some cars so that the new orders from July didn't come with a sunroof and so on. So if people have been waiting for a while, typically it's because they're waiting on components for certain models, or it's just that the batch that they're building at that time, for example, they might have made, I don't know, 250 trophy dynamic red trophy ZSEV long range, but if you ordered a blue one, then that obviously isn't going to get satisfied with those 250 that have been built. So it's like that. And there's also quite a lot of people obviously taking delivery of the standard range versions, which look identical. So you might see some of those going out to customers, and it might give the impression that there are cars going out, but no, it's difficult. I've just seen also someone's asked about MG4 first batch allocation. What a mess. Curious what happened to the first come first served, and how come the Midlands and North got a disproportionate amount of stock? Well, if it's any consolation, actually I'm still waiting on my demonstrator for MG4s for both Chorley and Burnley branch. We were allocated around 10 cars per dealership, of which 8 of them we allocated to people who already had deposits down. 1 we had to put in the showroom, 1 we had to register as a demo. When we saw the list of what was coming through, we thought, right, we'll make the orange trophy the demonstrator at both cases. So as well, those are the 2 that didn't arrive on the transporter with the rest of the cars. So all of the customer cars arrived, all the SEs arrived. The 2 orange trophies, which we allocated as demonstrators, haven't. And of course, because we've allocated customers and said, given them a call and said, right, your car's coming next week, we couldn't then say, okay, well, actually, no, we're going to register your black SE SR as a demonstrator instead. Because then that would obviously be unfair to the people we've allocated the cars to. So it's been a bit of a faff. The trouble is basically that the MG didn't know what people were going to order because the cars were already on the water when they made the announcement about pricing and things like that. And then when they've arrived, they've basically tried to allocate a certain amount to each dealer. So each dealer had a launch stock. Some dealers were very proactive like us and took pre-orders. Unfortunately, that didn't really help because basically, we had like 80 pre-orders and 10 cars delivered, so that didn't really help us really. So when the cars came to us, we just went through our list and said, okay, we're being sent such and such cars. We've got a Camden Grey SE standard range. Okay, who said that we wanted that, or who said that they'd have. So if we look through a list and say, okay, somebody's ordered that, well, right, we can sell them that car. Right, we've got a Holborn Blue SE SR. Was anyone down for that? No. Okay, somebody was down for a Holborn Blue SE long range. Let's give them a call and see if they'll accept the short range. Or let's see if somebody else wanted, as said they wanted a different colour car, and would they take a blue instead? So that's how we've tried to do it, but it's just, it's not ideal. But it's a lot of, I suppose, for MG's point of view, they basically said, okay, we've got 1,000 cars. Let's just send send to each dealer and let them work it out.
Mhm.
But it doesn't really help us.
Oh, well, so about, I see somebody asking what type of batteries are on the MG4, but we'll come on to that in a moment, though. So I suppose with that said, MG4s are now coming into the country. Folk are taking possession of them and test driving them. So I shall throw the floor open now. Barry, you must like it so much you bought one.
Well, I certainly put pre-order in for the Camden Grey, and before they went launched, and I've been trying to find someone that actually had something in that I could go and drive. And yesterday afternoon, I got called by a local dealer because apparently Essex was a desert. There was no deliveries at all. That's what I heard. But eventually, I got the call, and this car, I think I was the third person to test drive it this afternoon. So yeah, it was in the bright orange, as I say. It's quite striking. If I was to stereotype, I'd say that orange should sell quite well in Essex. Well, Ford had a great deal of success, didn't they, with the Focus ST when it was in lime green and orange. So it was. I think it was kind of characterised. There's probably going to be a lot of comments on the forum for that one. But I wasn't keen on it in the orange personally. I think it would look great in the white, but cabbing, I personally, I would have liked to have had a few more buttons that didn't require you to push like Control Alt Delete to actually get to some of the functions you need with the push button on the steering wheel. One of the stars, is it the right star or the left star I need because I want to change the volume of the radio? It was. I guess you get used to it. It was difficult on a first test drive to get my head around that. Drove beautifully other than that. And I thought, when I finished the drive, I got out and I thought, I didn't realize that when I was driving the car that was square steering wheel. It's just so natural. That's a beautiful shaped steering wheel. It's distinctive and it's very natural drive. Seats were really comfortable. I think the back seems higher. It was well supported all the way up my back. A bit Germanic because it was sort of like that firmness. It rather reminded me of Mercedes for the seat comfort. Materials all around it. Well, it's a league above what I experienced when I went in the ID3 a few weeks back, just before we had our last call. I mean, the quality, the fit and finish was brilliant by comparison. And so that was really good. And I also, I said to my wife, what would you really like to know about this car? Because she couldn't go with me and it was luggage space. So I took 2 suitcases with me, ones that we typically used in the boot of my car. I said, can I try these?
Good idea.
I got the neighbours speaking. That's in my way with 2 suitcases.
Yeah. So I put a large one and put it aside, and I put it into the ZS next to it and took photographs of it. I haven't had time to get them up onto the line, but I can share them later. But I took basically with the deck on the lower level and the suitcase on its side, it came up to the parcel shelf. And it was exactly the same as the ZS when I've got the deck on the higher level. So the height of that boot area is about is pretty much the same,
Oh.
but it's wider. And there was a lot more space. And then I turned the suitcase around so it went lengthways into it, and it fitted better in that than it did in the ZS.
Yeah, I can't remember the stats, Barry, but the boot is bigger in the 4 than in the ZS, considerably. Yeah.
Well, I can't remember the measures, but I think the volume is about 23%, something like that, smaller with the seats up. But when the seats are down, they're the same virtually as they're about 1150, 1140, something like that, if I remember rightly.
So you had a good feeling when you drove it, you.
Oh yeah, lovely. And in the eco setting, it was responsive, probably the same as when you've got the ZS in sport mode, and you really push it, it just goes. It really does go. So when there's the dual motor 4-wheel drive, that's going to be one hell of a car.
Yeah. So someone who liked it so much actually went and bought one is Vera. So you've put your money right there. So we want to hear from you. What was it that you liked about it, and having taken ownership of it, what either do you like and what do you dislike, if anything?
Well, I had originally gone for a ZS. I put my order in back in March at Glanders in Aberdeen, and it was never arriving. And we went round past the dealership one afternoon, and I says, oh, and by the way, if you do happen to get an MG4 in the grey, I'll have it.
Not even having seen one.
Not even having seen it or test driven it. And he phoned me the last Tuesday, and he says, you're never going to believe this, but we've got an MG4 SE long range in your Camden grey, come off the trailer. I said, I'll be in tomorrow afternoon to see it. And we got a test drive of the orange trophy.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the feel of the car. I didn't like the fact all the bells and whistles and things with the trophy one that we drove.
Yeah.
There was too many things that was beeping and bonging as we were driving along. And it was like, you're falling asleep. No, we're not. Things like that. And
yeah, really distracting.
It was quite distracting, the amount of things like that. But then I went obviously back, and we decided we was taking the grey one. I picked it up on Friday afternoon in one of the worst stormy days in Aberdeenshire.
Seems to be a trend.
I know, who will pick up cars. And sat in over it, totally loved it, drove it home. And yes, I know what you mean about the steering wheel being square. It reminded me of I'll show my age now, the Allegro steering wheel.
The only car that Miles hasn't driven.
Yeah, it was my thought with it like the Allegro, but no, it's more comfortable to drive.
Yes. The only problem I see with it is when we were coming up home from Glanders and Aberdeen to our place, which is north of Aberdeen, we come over the bypass, and it seems to pick up the slip road speed zones and hangs on to them. Yeah. So you're allowed to do 70 on the dual carriageway, but it's flashing 40 continuously at me.
Yeah, I figured that's turning it off. Yeah,
I think that's just a problem with some of the modern sat navs. I get that all the time coming up the A9. There's experimental. Well, it's been experimental for about 6 years, but HGVs can drive at 50, and I think the car sees the 50 rondo and assumes that is the speed limit. It can't read experimental for HGVs. And I've noticed that it sticks on 50 and flashes when I'm entitled to do 70. So I wonder if it's just picking up the speed rondo from the slip road.
Roads, yeah.
Miles
Yeah,
is
the way the system works is it's got a camera that looks out for road signs, and obviously it's specifically looking for that round circle with a number in the middle of it. And depending on how close that sign is to the straight on position, it can sometimes misinterpret it that it's seen, because sometimes it might be that you're driving down a road and there is genuinely a 30 zone, but one of the lampposts is obscured by a vehicle coming the other way, or it's by a tree or whatever. So it sees this one on this side and it goes, okay, well, it's 30 then. Well, it can do a similar sort of thing with a split road sometimes, depending on the angle that the sign's at and depending on the distance it is as well. So with the, I know mine has got it where I drive down a road in Burnley, and as you go down the road effectively goes round to the right, but the straight on position, which I suppose traditionally would have been the straight position of the road, is a 20 zone. But you're on a 40 road, and as you come down that road, because you're coming down straight towards it and then you veer right, it thinks that you've gone past through that 20 zone sign. So then for the next however long, it's reporting that you're doing over the speed limit. You can turn the speed limit warnings off by holding down the end of the stalk on the ZS. I don't know if it's the same on the MG4. I'll have to look. I haven't actually test driven the MG4 myself yet because I'm still waiting for
Strangely, the manual did mention a way of doing it, but it doesn't seem to work. But,
No, it just
but at least we've stopped the noise, so it's just a flashing symbol now. It's not quite so bad.
So you just ignore the dashboard.
And Vera, with regards to the drowsiness warning, so I messaged MG this morning because quite a few people have mentioned it on the forum over the weekend. Two things on that. One is that they're aware of the issue and they're trying to work on a new version of software which gets rid of that drowsiness alarm issue. But China's in a national holiday for a week, so that's delayed things slightly. And secondly, they've also requested that dealers don't do any software updates on PDI because they think that some of the errors are being introduced actually at the point of PDI. That there's a sort of a spurious version of software that's going on that's not fully compatible. So that's what they're trying. So they're trying to avoid people doing that because the press cars didn't have this issue. So the issue has been introduced in the last week or so of since delivery started to dealers. So we're thinking that might be an issue with, there's basically a spurious version of software that's been put on at PDI, and that's what's causing the issue. So that's what they're working with at the moment. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, there should be some information from your dealer about a fix for those issues. There's also been some issues relayed to me about the Android Auto.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
If you're playing music and get an alert, the car turns the volume down but doesn't turn it back up, and then you can't hear the alert if you turn it back up.
It's got something about the hardware being not for resale or something.
Pre-production hardware not for resale. So all of that is actually fixed by a software update which is on the MG servers, but because of this other issue, they can't ask dealers to do it. So there is a fix for it. Again, it wasn't something that was on the press cars, so they're just trying to make sure that obviously they get all the software updates on the servers right, and then tell dealers to sort it out. So expect again that should be fixed when they sort out the driver fatigue warning system.
Thankfully,
also somebody else had an issue with the display brightness, saying that where is it? The auto mode seems like a good idea, but even in full daylight, it can't decide whether it's dark or light and switches between them, which can be distracting. Apparently, that's a known issue. Looking into it is caused by the auto lighting sensor being too sensitive. It's clicking between. When it's dark, it's not lively. So when a cloud goes over, basically it's switching, which it shouldn't do. So so MG are aware of these issues, and they are trying to work on software fixes for them within the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, you can turn off the volume on the driver fatigue warning system, which would be a good idea because at least then you don't have it constantly beeping at you. It does still come from the dashboard with a picture of a coffee cup, but that's slightly less distracting at least.
Well, thankfully it's the SE we already have, so it doesn't have that. But the test drive and the trophy was quite annoying. Someone was asking about the seats. Having test driven the Trophy, and then we jumped into the SE. Didn't notice much difference, but I would say they're softer. The fabric ones, and it's not.
On the Trophy MG4, it's part leather interior, isn't it? It's leather down the side, and then it's cloth in the middle. On yours, it's pure cloth. I think that both interiors look very nice. Actually, I think that the SE doesn't look any down market at all. You know, I think that they both look premium inside. Actually, Les, you test drove at the weekend, didn't you? What did you think of that? Was it an SE that you drove?
An SE standard range where I drove, what we drove, and it was only it was very good. The seating, I sat in both the long range, not the long range, the Trophy and the SE. I sat, there's the long range in the Trophy in the showrooms, and I didn't see no difference in the seats, quite honestly, apart from that little bit of leather on the edges. There wasn't much difference in them at all. They're both as comfortable as each other to me. The only problem that my wife had really, and a few people has mentioned it on the forum, is the width of the sills and the plastic on the sill on the outside sort of turns up somehow a little bit. I don't know, it sort of sticks out. When you open the door, it's there. It's like a sharp edge. It's sort of like that. And it's just, she's caught her leg. When she was getting in it the first time, she caught her ankle on it. And then when she was trying to get out of it, which she did eventually do, and she's not that big. She's only about 5'3". When she was trying to get out of it, the sales guy who was with us at the time, he said, I said, put your foot on that. He said, it's all right. You can put your foot on that while you're getting out. Well, she did go to put her foot on it, and I stopped her because as soon as I seen a little bit of weight going on it, it was literally bending. I said, do not put your foot on there. Do not do it. You've got to turn your body around and then get out that way, which she did. But she'd get used to it. It's not a deal breaker in any way, shape, or form. She would get used to it. She'd have to do.
The sills are noticeably wider than they are on the MG.
They are a lot wider, hell of a lot wider. Yeah. I mean, I looked at the Z. There was an HS part alongside it, which has got a similar sort of black thing across the bottom of the doors, but it's got a chrome strip in it as well. And that's basically the same. It looks almost identical. Well, when you open the door on the HS, the black part goes with the door, and the sill is just a normal sill, like the MG5 is basically. Where the MG4, it stays there, and the top half of it goes away with the door, but the bottom half of it stays where it is on the sill, and it's sort of got like a, I don't know, it's like that sort of shape on it. It's a funny shape, but it's not a deal breaker. Not a deal breaker in any way, shape, or form. The one that they had, I mean, the dealership that I went to, you know the dealership, Miles, they had 4. They had a black one, a white one, a red one, and an orange Trophy. All the others 3 being SRs, standard range SEs rather. They had 4 though. They had 2 on demo and 2 in the showroom. And the one we took, the one out, the black one that we took out, that looked quite nice in black actually. Although I would never buy a black car, but it did look nice because it covered all. You couldn't see that black plastic on the outside at all. It looked really good, but no, I would never buy a black car. But it drove lovely. It was absolutely superb, the driving, and I was happy. I did a little bit of a report on it on the forum, and I was happy it was throwing it down the range because I was interested to see what it would be like misting up. I was interested to see what it would be like. The MG5, I don't know whether you've noticed or not, but you only need to open the window more than a quarter of an inch, and you've got water dripping in, or you can have water dripping in, should I say, on the MG5. I've had it numerous times. And I can see they've actually, the top of the door cards, they've sloped them towards the window, where most door cards have a curvature coming into the car. This one is quite sharp, and it slopes back towards the window. And that's so the drips will run off and run down inside the doors and away. That's what that's all about. It is bad for that, the MG5. In fact, loads of people I know have fitted these wind deflector things, ring and rain deflector things, but where they get them from, I have no idea. I know they sell them in China, but nah, I didn't want to go with that.
You can get them on eBay.
Yeah.
I know what they're coming in from China, Barry. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
And there's a few people complaining they've arrived.
AliExpress.
They've arrived, yeah, AliExpress. They've arrived broken or they've arrived damaged in some way or other. And they've had problems sending them back, and they've had problems getting refunds and this, that, and the other. So I didn't bother. I mean, maybe when, if, please, I get the MG5 new one, I might buy some then. Maybe I'll do it then. But yeah, I like the car. It was very nice. Better boot than what I thought it was going to be. If you remember, Miles,
Yeah.
I thought the boot's not going to be that clever with the motor in the back. But quite honestly, it was quite a good boot on it. I was quite surprised at the boot. And the room in the rear, I set the seat up for myself, and I'm 6 foot. And I got in the rear after I got out the driver's seat, and I got it, loads of room. No problem at all. And plenty of width as well for 3 people.
Yeah.
If there was anything
That's
in
coming
the
with
back,
actually quite a bit from. That's coming with quite a bit from people in the showroom that they come and sit in the car and go, "Oh crikey, this is a lot bigger." And I think it's this new packaging that they can do because it is a ground up EV.
yeah,
That they've managed to, the wheelbase is actually, I think it's
longer.
only, it's within 10 millimeters or 15 millimeters of the HS, which is obviously a much bigger car. So the distance between the front and rear axles is massive. So the internal space, excluding the boot, is probably slightly bigger than the MG5, if anything.
Oh yeah, definitely better in the back than the MG5. It's definitely better. It is. There's much more room in the back of the MG4 than what there is in the MG5. Seats are very, very comfortable. The headlining when you first get in, you think, "Oh my God, it's dark in here." Bloody hell! But once you've been in it 5 minutes, you're used to it. It doesn't bother you after you've been in there for 5 minutes. But it did seem a bit strange getting into a very dark car. My missus never even noticed it. But because I've read about it on the forum, I looked and I thought, "Oh yeah, it is dark." But yeah, you're used to it in 5 minutes. It didn't really bother me at all.
Yeah, I thought it was dark when I hopped in the back. It seemed very dark, but when I was in the driving position, I didn't really notice the headliner colour at all.
And the windscreen is I would say quite big, actually, the windscreen. I don't know what it is about it, but it's quite a big windscreen because the MG5, which is all I've driven the ZS, I've no idea. But the MG5 has the mirror inside, the interior mirror, and it's got this big black box right in the middle, which I think is for the automatic wipers and cameras and whatever. And that takes up it's like a blind spot though with that. Sometimes it can be a blind spot that. But the MG4 doesn't seem to have that sort of thing in it. And it's a really big clear screen. Really clear it is. The view's really clear. It was very, very nice to drive. It went very well. I was quite surprised. It didn't get up much above 55 miles an hour. I think it only hit 55 miles an hour once on a bit of a dual carriageway, but it was absolutely bucketing it down. The trying to adjust, I know people said you can sort of assign things to these star buttons on the steering wheel. That obviously hadn't been done because the sales guy who was sat outside, he was only a young lad, but he was very good. He was really informative. He knew what he was doing. There's no doubt about that. He's certainly done some reading up or practicing with it. He quickly altered the blowers and that in the infotainment system, to alter the air conditioning and whatever, yeah, to get the screens clear. He did it very quickly because it was absolutely throwing it down the rain. Well, yeah, we was well impressed with it. Well impressed with it. And even though the sills and everything that I've just said, the only other thing was, it was quite strange actually. As I said, there was 4 cars there. I only looked at the trophy, which is in orange, and I looked at the SE, which was in the showroom because it was dry, obviously. Some of the door panels, not the door panels actually, it was the bonnet and the tailgate. They didn't seem to be aligned up very well. Whether they could be adjusted, I have no idea. But there was an actual, where the front panel is, the very front that's got the MG logo on the front of it, there was a definite lip of probably 2 millimeters, about me 3 millimeters. There was a definite lip where the bonnet was below that. If you like, if you can see my hands, if this is the front panel with the MG logo on it here, the bonnet sort of dropped just a little bit below it, as though it wanted just jacking up a touch to fetch it flush. And that was a little bit off-putting. I thought that doesn't seem too clever. But that
There's
was only
probably
on one.
those little rubber bungs you can twist around.
Yeah, I
with
know
just
you
that.
can adjust them normally.
But,
Yeah,
yeah.
but they wasn't, Barry. I lifted it up and had a look, and they're not. They're just 2 square blocks.
Oh,
They didn't seem to have any adjustments on them from what I could see. I mean, I only had a quick look at it, I must admit. And the tailgate, it was like, I don't know, at the bottom of the tailgate, it was the wife who pointed it out. So she said, "What's that line there?" And I said, it's just a gap where the body fit, the panel fits. And it was like 6 mil at one side and 10 mil at the other. And you could literally see it tapering down, getting wider at one side on the tailgate. So it was on that one car. The other car was okay. The other car seemed fine. So whether that car had been built too straight or whether it's had a knock, I don't know. But yeah, very
it's an
pleased.
apprentice putting it together.
You know, to look out for issues like that and to deal. This is the sort of thing that dealers can adjust.
Yeah,
Can get, you know, if the panel fits or if the bumper needs, you know, slight adjustments, whatever sort of thing that can be adjusted.
Has anybody tried it in the dark? What's the lighting like on it?
Sadly, not yet.
Well,
But
semi-dark.
definitely better than the 5. I'll give it that. Yeah, like
Is it?
candles.
Good.
But,
Good.
Yeah.
It's got full LED headlamps, hasn't it, on the
Yeah.
now, so in terms of brightness and things like that, I think that obviously that should help, and also with the no, I don't know what the official term is. Basically, the reflectivity of, you know, the LED light casts further, doesn't it? It's a whiter light, so it tends to hold things up better. So
that was something I meant to check when I looked at the car, because it's some time since we first discussed it. But what did it really mean by LED reflectors that's the trophy, and it's not. They're a different light design, aren't they, in the SE?
Yeah, they are different slightly. Yeah, the indicators are in the headlights on the SE, but they're not on the trophy for one. So they're definitely different in that respect. What the light is like, I know it was daylight when I drove it, but it was a bad day, but it was daylight. So I couldn't really tell anything. The lights was on because the weather was atrocious, but that was it. But yeah, it drove lovely. It really, I thought, very quiet. That is definitely quieter than the MG5. Definitely quieter.
Yeah.
It drove lovely and it was smooth. It picked up quite well, even though it was I think it was in normal 3, if I remember rightly. He left it in normal 3. Because I said to him, I said, "Where's the buttons for changing the regen and whatever?" And he said, "They're all inside the screen." I thought, well, that's okay if they stop there when you've set them there. You know what I mean?
Well, they do. I asked about
don't
that.
want to be mauling with that when you're driving. There's no way.
Yeah, I did ask, and he said, yeah, if you set it and then it's there, and the next time you drive, it's the last setting. And the other thing is he'd mapped the right-hand star button.
Yeah, it's not the case actually, but it doesn't remember what mode you're in. So if it'll be default to.
That's good if it does. That's good if it does.
But what you can do is you can remap the star button on the trophy model.
Yeah.
You can choose whether regen level, climate control, driving mode, and then you can use the joystick to scroll between those settings, so you can change the temperature and things.
But is that just on the trophy model? Is that not on the SE?
On the trophy, on the SE,
doesn't do it.
two things. Is that just climate control and volume? Is it? I can't.
It's climate control on the right-hand side. The left-hand side, it was either Android Auto or just brings up the sort of summary screen on the other button. And the driving modes, I just set a custom one. I was hoping it stayed, but sadly, no. You have to. It'll be a normal the next time you fire up. Obviously, your custom settings are saved, but you have to select custom again. Seems to be. I don't know if the trophy does that, but it was happening there.
Yeah, the trophy also doesn't remember the last mode it was driven in. I don't know. I don't know the reason for this, and I have questioned it a few times because I think that
they did announce it was going to be, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, so they say you can set up custom modes. You can set a custom mode, but it doesn't remember that to set it back into custom mode. You have to choose it. So, because what I would probably do is sort of tweak it to be a sort of eco setting with a adaptive regen, because that's another thing. The MG4's got adaptive regen, so it can use the forward collision detection radar to basically decide whether it wants to do you've got a clear road ahead of you, it'll do level 1 regen. If you're doing, if you've got busy traffic, it'll do more like level 3. But that's that adaptive regen, which is similar to how it works in the Kia Niro EV and the Kia Soul EV and things like that. But yeah, it won't remember to be in that mode every time. You'll have to go back and say, I want to be in custom drive mode, unfortunately.
So if I could go back to Vera and Keith, you've got the 5 and you've got the 4. If you were, say, driving 150, 175 miles, someday you're going to have to select which car you're going to take, unless you fall out and you both go on your own. Let's hope that doesn't happen. What would be your decision makers for that? Would you take the 4 or would you take the 5? Or
Good question, Dave.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't really say that the 5, when I was driving it, I jumped back in it to go to work today again, certainly feels heavier, but it's still a lovely,
Great car,
solid car, superb. The 4, I guess it's a bit biased just now because it's a new toy, but the range, we've only ever charged it up to 80%, so the ranges are equivalent. I guess if it was a long journey and we wanted to avoid any public charging, then yeah, the 4 would, for what we are doing, there's only the 2 of us, so we're not looking for rear passengers. So our back seat is taken up by a dog tube to keep the 2 dogs in, so we can still have the boot. So I would just absolutely probably take the 4.
Probably take the 4, yeah.
It's interesting. Because I'm comparing how did I enjoy the drive in the old ZS to how I'm enjoying the drive in the new ZS. And it's amazing how you flick around. Oh, I quite like that in the old car. Oh, but this overcompensates, etc. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Not anything wrong with the 5.
No.
It's, obviously there's more space with the seats folded, etc. But we were amazed that, as you said earlier, the boot space in the 4 is
it's good,
more than I was expecting.
Well, on Saturday,
God.
We on Saturday took my MG4
Yeah.
and we had Keith drove it. We had the dog tube for our 2 dogs in the back seat, but only took up the
60%.
The 60% of the seat, and so we still had a passenger seat if we needed in the back. So with the 2 dogs, and Keith does remote control airplane flying. So we had a remote control airplane, about yay size big, and all the bits and pieces that need to go with it in the boot of the car. So there was more than enough room.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good point, Keith. What's the wingspan on this aircraft?
What would that one be?
Well, is it one that?
Well,
is it one with
you're
a
talking about
fixed wing?
Les, we all know the way you're thinking. No, it doesn't have rail bars.
No, I'm just wondering if it's on a 3'6" or 4 foot wide, if it fits in the boot. That's what Vera's just said. I'm just wondering how wide the aircraft is. If it's a fixed wing aircraft.
It is a fixed wing, but they were plug-in, so it was 2 half-wing panels, so it was a bit easier than.
Right.
But we still had the single seat to fold down as well, so I could have easily got a 5-foot wing in there without any problem.
Good.
With the seat folded.
That's good.
Yeah.
The
seats, I was going to say on the 4, if anybody's looked at the 5, they don't go completely flat. The 4 is very nearly flat.
Yes. There's a bit of a lip, but it's still quite flat. I noticed that. I did try that. And it did fall down pretty well flat. It did. Where the 5 is stuck up like this. Unless you take the swab holes of go. But yeah, it was pretty good in that respect, the 4, I must agree. It was. Yeah, I like the 4 very much, I do, but I think she's having it with her mum. Oh, I'm like this. Every day I'm like this, yeah. Come on, Miles, where's this bloody car?
And you maybe
obviously
before she changes her mind.
Obviously, one of the other reasons we took the 4 as well, which would have been in the ZS, was the vehicle to load, because after having been knocked out by Storm Arwen for a whole
Yeah,
week
yeah,
last November.
yeah, definitely. Could
But
be a big
saying
help to you.
Saying
But-
that, oh, sorry.
No. Carry on, Vera. Carry on.
Having the 5 last year, Keith took my Suzuki Jimny to work, left me with the electric car. So when it got so cold, I went out and put on the heated seats.
Yeah. And the heater. Put the heater on as well.
Oh,
As long as you've got it on drive mode, what am I going to say? Start. Go.
Ready.
As long as it's on
Ready,
ready mode, that's the word, that's it, ready.
Yeah.
As long as it's on that, run the heater for half an hour, I would, if it's that cold, definitely.
Can I just point out to everybody, it does get warmer than that in Scotland, somewhere about August.
But only for a week, Dave.
A couple of days.
And you maybe not had a chance to compare yet, but what about full charge-up times? Is the 4 considerably quicker, or is it about the same? Or?
Sorry, I couldn't. We've only AC charged at home so far. So we briefly tried Pod Point in Tesco just to make sure the cable was working, but that was all. So I can't really comment on rapid charging.
Yeah. Have you any thoughts on that, Miles? Is the 4 going to be faster to charge?
The MG4 on a home charge won't make any difference. On a rapid charger, the standard range can go up to 115 kilowatts, and the long range can do up to 130. So as opposed to on the long range MG5, it's about 90 is your maximum, and on the standard range MG5, it was about, I think, 75, 78, something like that, I think, much. So I think that there's there are benefits if you're doing a long journey to take the MG4 over the MG5. One, because it's potentially slightly more efficient. I don't know if you found that at all. It's slightly more aerodynamic car. It's been designed to be EV, so it should be slightly more efficient, and the slightly faster charging speed, if you find yourself at a slightly faster charger, would be useful.
I don't know what efficiency we were getting, but being its first weekend, I think it was possibly more enthusiastically driven than normal. So.
Not by me.
So.
It's more aerodynamic underneath as well, isn't it? Because the deck is
flat.
it's very flat.
Yeah, it's got a
underneath.
very flat floor underneath. Yeah,
very flat. Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's very nice. It's very nice.
And Vera, just as Miles has pointed out in the talk, you can have a VTL adapter for the 4, can't you? So you could actually be getting power off the car and put it back into the house. So you can be, when you have your next power cut.
You're limited to about 2.2 kilowatts, I believe. But I believe there's 1 or 2 people took it up to 3 kilowatts. I've seen on YouTube. Whether that's okay or not, I don't know.
Rated at 2.5 kilowatts, which is about 11 amps.
Yeah.
But realistically, there's not many. Boiling kettle for a short period of time will work. Trying to boil a kettle and use a toaster at the same time is probably not advised. No, for running a fridge or freezer or something during a power cut
like that,
But you don't plug it into the house. Obviously, you've got to have because I haven't got a fixed ground, so you've just got to run it as if it's a generator.
There's only one downside to that thing from what I've seen up to now, and that's the price of it. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. MG's charging for it,
MG charging
very expensive.
£260.
How much?
260 quid.
260, 260. Yeah, well, it's very expensive, that Maz, I think, quite honestly.
I'm sure there will be third-party ones available.
Oh, there'll be loads of them, Barry. You can bet your life on that. There already is, believe you me. But,
Jake News says it works the leaf blower.
Leaf blower, it's a 3,000. You've got a 3,000 watt leaf blower on it. Yeah.
I know someone's got a leaf. Do you think? Blow it away, definitely.
Bernie Pottrell says that he got a V2L adapter off AliExpress, but had to change the internal resistor value to make it work on the MG.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But he says it cost him 18 quid, which is obviously cheap. So that might
Yeah,
be
very cheap.
something that's burning. It sounds like there's a definite business plan there to import like 20 of them from AliExpress and then change the resistor and flog them off at 50 quid a time. I think you'll do okay at that.
Yeah. I don't know
You
whether I
won't
trust
do
them at
vehicle to
miles, quite
grid.
honestly.
So yeah, Sanxion01 has asked, is it right the MG4 will do vehicle to grid as well as vehicle to load? No, it won't do
No.
vehicle to grid it yet. Right.
No.
And what else I've just seen in the thing that he's answering. Somebody's asked, Bernie's asked about insurance companies. Some people have had issues getting insurance.
Yeah.
Keith,
Yeah, I have.
do you struggle at all with insurance?
Well, eventually got through Admiral
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest.
Yeah.
Wasn't the cheapest, but time constraints. It probably if we'd had a week or something like that,
Yeah,
Well,
we might
interestingly,
have got a better deal.
I looked at insurance for another car recently, not the MG4, and the way that they weight the premiums is that it's typically about 10% more if you want insurance within the next couple of days.
Yeah,
Because they know that you're urgent and you know that you
yeah,
need it,
Yeah.
so they weight it higher. If you can sort your insurance a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in advance,
Yeah.
up to 3 weeks I think 3 weeks is the ideal. So if you do 21 days in advance,
yeah,
you can save around 10% on your insurance just by planning. Basically, it doesn't
True.
work very well when you're buying a brand new car and you want to drive it away within days.
No.
But for anyone who is
There's quite a few people complain about the price of insurance. It's doubled and double what they had before, or whatever it was. It is quite hefty. I did look at it briefly just online for if my wife does decide to have it. I looked at it, how much it was going to cost her, and it was a lot more than what she's paying now. But as you say, Marge, you did right though. Even Martin Lewis says, have a look 3 weeks before on his website. He tells you,
yeah.
the multi-saving fella, he tells you, look 3 weeks before to get your what's it in place, your insurance.
Yeah, so hopefully within the next couple of weeks, all the insurance companies will actually realise it's on the database. They'll start acknowledging it, be able to build the quotes on confused.com and compare the market and all those sort of things. And
I had the same problem with the 5.
Mhm.
When I got the 5, I had the same problem
Yeah.
with the 5 because I went to my insurance company when I bought that and they quoted me a ridiculous figure. And then I had a shop around. I couldn't find, there was loads of people, LV, Admiral, there was different ones, didn't even have it on the database. They couldn't find it. They didn't even know it existed.
I was
But I
actually
eventually
doing
got
that with the ZS Les. I was just changing from one style of ZS to the new one, and
Yeah.
my insurance company couldn't find it. Just
No,
said, sorry,
nope.
it's not in the database.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it's not. It isn't.
So I had to
Well, I
go
mean,
through-
I got mine nearly 3 years ago, and I just went to LV, and I had my previous car with them, and I said I wanted to do a change of vehicle to that, and they no problem at all. And they said, yeah, I'd give you all the whole EV package, and they sent me a refund. That was going from a
Yeah,
Honda
same buddy, I
CRV
got.
down to that. I got a refund.
Yeah, I wasn't complaining about the price. The price was matched, but it was that they couldn't actually find the style of car.
No, I had the same in mind. They couldn't find the card. And I didn't pay any more. As Barry said, I got £18 refund, I think it was.
Mhm.
But the great thing about LV, the way I stuck with them at the time was, this is going back now, 18 months or more. They had a thing on there where it was like, for want of a better phrase, 12 months free gap insurance. And it was the total package whereby if anything happened in the first 12 months, they just replaced it new for old. That was with LV. And they also had, there's quite a few got it now, but they was the only one at the time, if I can remember, who had a system whereby if you ran out of electricity, they would come and give you a charge or take you to a charge or whatever it was. It was good. It was very good at the time. It was one of the better ones at the time. But then when the first year of it was over, the premium went through the roof for some reason or other. So I changed. I went somewhere else. So it's all about cost at the end of the day, and when it works down to it, so it comes down to cost.
One of the comments there in the chat is that you should charge up your car and work your tumble dryer off it. The domestic prices are going.
It's been done. There's a few on YouTube showing you this: washing machines, tumble dryers, different things are being powered off, heaters, all kinds of things. That was the one that he had about 3.5 kilowatts on it at one stage. I thought, Someone's got to blow up here. It's got to do. Someone's got to catch fire. But
Well, effectively,
be
you've
all
got
right.
a really,
That was on the ZS. I must admit that was on the
Yeah.
new
You've got
ZS, like Dave just got.
you've basically just got like 7 Tesla Powerwalls almost in terms of capacity with the ZS.
Yeah.
In terms of, in terms of storage capacity, you've got it's great, but obviously the limiting factor is that you only can plug in what you can plug in via your extension lead. You can't run your whole house of it.
There's quite a few got it now, isn't there, Miles? Quite a few cars have got that on now.
Quite a few cars got the vehicle to load functionality coming through. A lot of Kias.
Yeah, a lot of Kias, a lot of Hyundais. They've all got them now. It's coming in a big way.
Right, just looking at the time, guys. We've been talking for about an hour. Is there anything else we'd like to cover tonight?
Well, I suppose the only thing and it's probably for a podcast on its own, is just where is electric charging going cost-wise, and how is that affecting? I'm okay because I've got PV and a charge up during the day as much as I possibly can. What really ripped my knitting is journalists saying it's now more expensive to drive an electric car than any diesel or petrol equivalent. They're going, no, it is not.
It is if you're charging up on Osprey every day.
Aye, well, that must be.
At the same time, though, Dave, I think that the issue we've got, and I think part of the reason for example, the Osprey announcement was that it was a bit of a flag to the government to say, look, unless you help us out here, we're not going to be able to do this. This greening of the fleet isn't going to happen, because the realistic thing is that if a company like Osprey is getting charged 70 pence or more per kilowatt hour, and they have to put 20% VAT on top of it as well, and they've got to try and make some sort of profit so that they can cover the cost of the £25,000 per charger install. I think that realistically, they're on to 84 pence just on the cost of the 70 pence plus VAT. So if they want to try and make any profit, a quid per kilowatt hour is basically where they need to be. But it's obviously, it's not going to help people. £1 per kilowatt hour, it's costing you sort of 30 to 40 pence. No, 25 to 30, 40 pence per mile, depending on how efficient your car is and what have you. I think that there is a risk there that people doing longer journeys, or people that haven't got, I keep saying that, I'm very lucky that I live in a house with solar panels on the roof, a Tesla Powerwall, and I've got a driver I can charge at home, and I've got a Octopus Go tariff, and I'm charging very cheaply overnight. But if I was where I was sort of 10 years ago, which was living in a terraced house with no driveway, and I would have to charge,
then you've got a problem,
either through a trip hazard cable across the path, or else I was going to be going to public chargers. It wouldn't be, as cost effective for me as it is now. So I think that's it is something that needs looking at, and something. But I think the entire energy market, as we're well aware, needs overhauling. The way that we pay for electricity at the moment, the way that it's linked to the price of gas, and that it doesn't matter how many renewables we have. If we've got 1% gas, the entire thing's priced the same as the gas, makes it not effective. So I think we need to we'll see what if anything the government has up its sleeve. We'll just wait the next U-turn, I suppose.
So in fact, it probably is quite a good topic for including in a podcast. Just what are folk doing, and how are they charging, and how have the increases in costs changed folks' rationale for charging. I suppose I'm just a wee bit more careful that I charge up during the day. I might have left the car on. It's
the same, Dave.
It's dark by 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, Miles, as you know. I have to remember this.
I do exactly the same.
With this situation, like the cap, and it seemed to be very, very badly explained. And there's a lot of people I'm seeing on social media getting really confused that somehow they thought it was going to be 2,500 was their electricity capped. And I've noticed now that the BBC, particularly over the past couple of days, have really emphasised that it is the unit cost is being capped, and your bill may vary depending on how much you use. So that's one thing. But the frustration I had was that I'm fairly close to the time when I'm due to renegotiate my Go, and all the information was coming out was all around the cap for people on standard variable. Well, if you're on Go, you've got a fixed electricity price. And what's really confusing as well is Octopus sent out this email that was talking about what was going to happen to the variable, and there was not going to be any more fixed, but they were talking about the gas. So I got that email because the gas is variable, but the electricity is on a fixed rate, and not knowing whether or not there was going to be a new fixed rate when it ended, and was there going to be split rates, or everybody was going to go on to 34p or what it was. And I looked at that and calculated that my actual electricity usage, which is 60% on the off-peak Go, would just go through the roof. And there was no one able to give any answers until I think it was first or second in the afternoon. I think on the 1st of October, you get this email that says, "Oh, by the way, the fixed is still going to be in play, and we're going to be providing, the Go will carry on." But it's very, very confusing. But we're over that threshold now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a point you make well, Barry. It has been explained badly that the cap, I'm sure a lot of folk think that's great. It's just we don't have to pay after that, but it's on the unit, and you're right. And a couple of folk have come on agreeing with you.
Yeah, it is.
But
So,
I mean, Miles, you're okay because you've got your Tesla Powerwall.
Yeah. But I think folk are thinking differently. So yeah, I know Stuart's listening in. It might be good to get that included in a podcast and ask what folk are coming up with, good ideas, etc. So I am very mindful of time. You're quite right, Miles. Has anybody got anything else just to chip in about either the 4 or any of the comparisons we've been speaking about?
No,
No, I think we
no.
We'll discuss tariffs next time, I think. And
I think that would be a good one. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'll bring it to a close. It's been a really good chat, and certainly learned a lot more about the 4. Thank you all for sharing your experiences, either on the test drive or, as Vera's done, just put our money in her pocket and gone and got one. I was actually really impressed that Keith owned up to his wife that he'd been driving the car fast.
She was sitting next to me.
You're gonna get a clip round the ear the minute this. So before we go, if you are interested, I know we've mentioned in the past, but Aura electric cars and the Aura Cat will be coming to the UK imminently. I think I saw somebody saying that the dealers are now advertising that they're going to have Auras. So please sign up to our auraev.com, our sister forum, and get any updates on the Aura Cat. So that's it for this week's podcast. Many thanks for the participants. Les, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Bye, everybody.
Barry, good to hear from you again.
Bye, folks. See you next time.
Keith and Vera in Aberdeenshire, thank you for helping me out, not being the token Scot. I was just so delighted when I got the blue car. I thought, the first person I'm going to phone is Miles to tell him I haven't just gone for a white car, and the Scottish stereotype that he throws him. But and hopefully you'll participate in podcasts a lot more and give us more updates.
If you'll have us, yeah.
Oh, of course we will. Of course we will. And Miles, thank you very much again for all your input.
No, thank you. I was just thinking, actually, some white tape across your bonnet, you could make the Scottish flag, couldn't you?
Yeah,
could do.
Baltar.
Quite a contentious thing in Scotland at the moment, what you do with your Scottish flag. So, as we've got promotion in our group in the European nations, anyway, that's quite good. So, We'll be back with another MG EV podcast soon. If you found the podcast useful, please click the like button. Also, if you subscribe and click the notification bell, you will get notified the next time we go live, which is particularly useful if we do have to change the day or whatever at the last minute. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you at the next podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.